Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Control Report Podcast, episode 128. I'm Benjamin Yoder, here today to talk to you about video games. Per usual lately, I have not been playing a lot of games. I've been playing games, but not in a significant amount to really talk about them too much, usually for other things that I'm working on, so if I sat here and talk about it, it kind of nulls the fact of me talking about it later. But yeah, I've just been kind of jumping around on a handful of things. What I did play last weekend, but I didn't post because of the other podcast. I went and played through Journey with a friend. They said they want to try to meet up in the game, which if you don't know, in Journey, that's kind of the old I think it's That Game Company is the developer. Their actual name's That Game Company. And basically, it's like you explore this desert and ruins and stuff as this little, I guess, covered up scarf kind of guy. And it's pretty much like just a walking simulator, I guess you could call it. You just kind of walk around. There's some basic puzzle solving and platforming, but nothing really that actually gets in your way or anything like that. And the whole thing is that they don't really want you playing with your friends directly. They want you to dynamically match him with other players and meet people who you can't really communicate with. You can kind of make these little noises at each other. It's like doot, 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 doot kind of thing, but you can't actually see their username until the very end of the game or communicate them with them directly. And if they get too far away from you, they just kind of disappear from your game, and you can't choose who you join a game with. But we tried to pair up, and we were successful for probably about 20 to 30% of the game. But then we got separated at some point, and we never saw each other again for the rest of the game. But it was kind of interesting because we were trying to, get matched up with each other. So we were very much keeping in pace with each other, even though we were playing completely separate games, and kind of communicating back and forth. Oh, I see this, I can go do this. Okay, here's these little scarf collectible you can get it here, and trying to direct the other person and stuff like that. So it was actually kind of interesting to play it that way. But obviously that's not a normal experience. We were literally trying to circumvent the experience that the game gave you. I will say that the story of Journey, which I mean, that's kind of the whole thing, is it's not much of a game. It's an artistic showpiece more than anything else. And it looks nice. It was a PS3 game, and it still looks great on a PS4. But I story wise, I just don't really. I mean, I'm sure there's probably a bunch of subtext stuff that I missed, but it more or less just seemed like, oh no, technology's bad and killed everybody, or something like that. Rest in peace. I guess that's technically a spoiler, but that's kind of every other video game. So if you have a video game with technology in it, chances are they're gonna say it's bad and you shouldn't do it. It's about as common as saying the church is bad in a JRPG. It's oh no, by the way, the bishop's evil. It's okay, that sounds about right. So yeah, so it was fine. I don't know. I didn't love it. It was fine enough. I don't really get the hype of it, but it also came out a long time ago. So, back then, what a downloadable only game was quite a bit different. You'd had different expectations. I mean, people would rate games differently if they were downloadable content. I think there were downloadable games of the year and stuff like that some websites would have that were separate from actual game of the year, just because the expectations of what you were getting was so different. So yeah, it was fine. And then, like I said last week, I got my Toro VGA box. So I had that last week, but I finally got the SCART cable for it. Or not last week, but the week before that. So I finally got the SCART cable for it. So I was finally able to hook my Dreamcast up to my FrameMeister and do 480p, which I was actually surprised. I played through basically every Dreamcast game I have. The exception is my Card Captors game, because that disc actually won't read. I think it's a combination of both my disc drive and my Dreamcast not doing as well as it used to, and also maybe something with the disc. Although I've looked at the disc, and the disc looks fine, so I don't know what is causing the problem. It's also an import game, so I had to launch it through another boot disk, so maybe there's some issue there. I don't know. Anyways, so I basically played every Dreamcast game I had, just got a little bit of footage for each of it, just kind of checked it out. I just wanted to see, how these games looked, and it's really nice and clean, and it was cool to see because, 480p is something I'm used to for GameCube and Xbox. PS2, you do have some games that are 480p, but I think it's less likely. Although, honestly, due to the sheer size of the PS2's library, it might end up being the more progressive scan games on PS2 and Xbox PS2 versus GameCube and Xbox. So, but yeah, so I was really impressed, and it's really great to see those games so clearly. And the box I got is a Toro box, and it also does RGB supposedly, but I had no reason to use it. Basically, so the one case that I did need to use it was the boot disc I used to launch Japanese games. So First Kiss Story 2, and tried that Card Captors game. The actual boot disc can't run in VGA mode, so I have to switch it to RGB and then switch it back to VGA. But it's just like it's pretty dang close. It's a little like more distorted on like the RGB, or maybe not distorted, but maybe a little blurrier when I use RGB. But with maybe it's like so slight. I don't know if I could even really tell. But yeah, it looks really nice and clean. I had a great time like revisiting a lot of games that I used to play a lot, and checking out some games I really haven't like spent a lot of time on. Like I've bought a handful of Dreamcast games over the years that I spent like 5 minutes on. I was like, oh, yep, that's a video game. And it was like, I will eventually play this, and sure enough, I have not eventually played them yet. And just like getting to revisit those and be like, yeah, this game's still cool. I still really need to sit down and play through this. So yeah, maybe at some point in the future we'll start playing some more Dreamcast games here. The one thing I was surprised by, if you're a long time One Control Report podcast listener, at least for this year, you would know that First Kiss Story is a thing, a thing with me. So it's like a Japanese visual novel. I don't know how much I want to really explain what it is. I don't know, like, it could always be your first episode, but it's basically a Japanese visual novel that is developed by this company that I follow. And so there's First Kiss Story, the original one that they ported to the Dreamcast, because it's originally a PCFX game. And then so the Dreamcast version runs at a higher resolution and everything. It uses the assets from the PlayStation 1 port that happened a while back ago. I don't know what resolution the PS1 port runs at. I don't know if it's like a 240p thing or what. So it just looks really nice, and I could run First Kiss Story in 480p. So that's probably the best I'll ever see for First Kiss Story running without running an emulator. But since it's all 2D graphics and stuff, like I really don't think an emulator would super benefit it that much in terms of better visual quality. But yeah, so but the thing is there's also a First Kiss Story 2, and I've largely ignored First Kiss Story 2 for the fact that Hunex didn't develop First Kiss Story 2. As far as I can tell, it looks like they had basically no involvement. It looks like First Kiss Story was sold off to a company called Broccoli, and M2 developed or ported First Kiss Story 1 to Dreamcast, and then I think some other random developer worked on First Kiss Story 2. So First Kiss Story 1 was ported by M2. Other developer, I can't remember the name, worked on First Kiss Story 2 itself. So it was the first time I ever actually booted up First Kiss Story 2, and I actually played through it. And I don't know if I was surprised. I don't know. I think I was surprised because if you look at the First Kiss Story 2 promo materials and stuff, it's very much just focused on the new girls, because obviously they're the ones that you're going to actually be dating in this game, and so they're the core characters. But I was kind of surprised to see that it does take place in the same town. And those characters from the first game are there, and they've been redrawn, cleaned up a little bit, and it looks nice. Obviously I don't know where they are like story wise, but it seems like they definitely have aged up since First Kiss Story 1 in that case. So it definitely seems very sequelish. I mean, you can't actually date any of them, I assume, for the fact that it would break the canon or whatever canon there is in First Kiss Story, considering you date 12 girls. Like there's 12 different endings, so who knows what. But I was surprised, and I was kind of like happy to see that, and like it made me more interested in First Kiss Story 2. The problem being is that it's not Hunex, so like in my brain it's like it's an interesting side path, and I shouldn't let that much bother me, but it's like I don't want to sit down and play through First Kiss Story 2, at least no time in the near future, so I'm gonna put it off for now. But I was pleasantly surprised. I guess I kind of was thinking like, I don't know, like I would expect maybe because the fact that you wouldn't date the same girls from the previous game, that they basically just created a whole new world that maybe were focused around the same themes. I think First Kiss Story is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of straightforward and simple, and I think that was kind of like its brand, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of what it ended up being. Or I wouldn't have been surprised if they just kind of try to recreate that within like a different setting with different characters. So yeah, but anyways, that's a weird little thing. I forgot I had that little tirade to go on. I'll never talk about First Kiss Story 2 again, at least not anytime soon. First Kiss Story, the OVA, is the only real sequel to First Kiss Story because Hunex actually worked on it. Although Broccoli also worked on the First Kiss Story OVA too, so I don't know. Whew. But yeah, that's kind of it for game stuff. I filled half a podcast with it, so is it better than I expected? Haven't been playing a ton of other stuff though, unfortunately. So we'll get started back up here in a bit after I get done with a bunch of these articles and stuff I'm working on, or videos and articles actually. There's a handful of trailers I saw this week. Some of these are going to be old, and some of them are really old because I missed them, but they're exciting to talk about. There was a new trailer for Oni-Chanbara Origins, I believe like a week or two ago. That game still looks really good, and I think I am gonna buy Oni-Chanbara Origin. I was debating not doing it because I kind of wanted to go back and play the PS2 version of the game, but the game just looks really clean, and I think, you know, as somebody who hasn't played any other Oni-Chanbara games and probably shouldn't sit there and be like, I'm gonna play these games in order, I probably should just play that latest release, and it's an origin story, so obviously, you know, it's gonna start from the beginning, so that's probably the best part for me to join back in. Who knows though? Like maybe everybody will hate it. Like there's like a weird segment of the Yakuza community that seem to not like the Kiwami games, particularly Kiwami 2. I don't know if I'd say weird segment. It's just there's a segment of that stuff. So it's always interesting to see like how people who are fans of the original feel about that kind of stuff. And then also there's a new Tokyo Ghoul trailer. Nothing really new there other than I just thought it looked cool. Although Tokyo Ghoul comes out in like 5 days, I think, from when I'm recording this. So or like 4 days from when you'll hear this. And yeah, that game just still looks like a really fun beat 'em up. I'd really like to sit down and play it, but I just don't know if I'll get to it. I'm kind of clogged up on games right now, so any new games is kind of just gonna get in the way. Shenmue 3 comes out soon, by the way. Like, I didn't realize that. Oh, I don't know what to do about Shenmue. I really wanted to play through Shenmue 2 again, but I'm just not gonna get around to it. I don't know. We'll see. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with Shenmue at this point. I do really want to play Shenmue 3, but I don't know if I want to go into Shenmue 3 cold from being a decade out from playing Shenmue 1 and 2, you know. And here's the other thing that I want to talk about. This is the this game. I don't know how much I'm going to talk about this. Hopefully a lot. So there's this game called Kaminazo, which is basically a paper folding game. So it's on the Switch, and it has like a story progression to it that looks like it has something to do with like these two kids that knew each other when they were younger, and they kind of grew up. And there's like some kind of like mystery puzzle surrounding these kids, and they seem to have like numbers on them. I don't know if they actually have numbers on them or if that's just for the sake of the puzzle. But what's really cool is that you when you buy this game, you basically go to their website and print out a bunch of paper, and you do like little arts and craft kind of things. Not really arts and craft, but like you like will cut up paper, fold it, do some origami kind of stuff. And you solve puzzles using that paper in real life and doing those things in real life. And I think that's really cool. The developer apparently worked on some other game. I'm blanking on the name of it. That's kind of similar. It's like basically like an escape room game where you like have to print out maps and stuff and figure out some information based off those maps. I didn't like it as much, just if only aesthetically, it didn't look particularly nice. I think what really interests this is what really interests me about Kaminazo, because like, yes, I have Nintendo Labo stuff. Nintendo Labo is a cool thing from what I've played so far. I mean, I've only built the piano, so obviously I kind of have, you know, a feeling specific to that piano device that I've created. But I kind of feel like with Labo, you have the build phase, and then you have the game phase almost. Although with the piano, it arguably isn't even a game phase. You know, it's just kind of create music. But it's like these very separate phases. They don't really like match. They don't really mash up anything. The build phase is just the build phase, and the game phase is just the game phase, basically. And so Kaminazo basically, crushes these two things together. So you have the physical real world object you're working with, and you're creating this thing. And when you're creating these things, it's solving puzzles in the game. And whether the implementation is good or not is a whole other thing. But I like that concept. I like cramming those together and making what, at least on paper, at least, I don't know how to say it than on paper. Something that is going to be a bit more cohesive and consistent in terms of like what you're doing as a player, and what you're doing having actual impact on what's going on in the game in terms of just solving puzzles and things like that. I'm not saying you're going to change the story or something like that based off of the origami you're doing, but I think that's just really cool that it kind of integrates everything together and makes it a part of the whole experience rather than having these very segmented periods of time. That, and like when you do the origami stuff, it's cool. It provides its purpose, and when you're done with it, like, or at least from the impression I'm getting from this trailer and what I've seen of the game. And with like the Labo stuff, it kind of lingers because like I have this piano over here. I'm never gonna play this piano again. Like, I don't know, but it's on my shelf now because like what else am I gonna do? Because it's a video game controller now, and I can't just throw out a video game controller. So I'm very excited for this game. It comes out on the 25th in Japan. I really couldn't find. I had Rowan, who's on the Gun Gauge podcast, mentioned something about one of the games being in English. I wasn't sure if he was talking about the previous game or the Kaminazo, but I did see some other. I think it was like the Nintendo Everything post or something like that that did mention it was going to have English support. So my hope is that on the 25th, that will be on the US eShop for me to purchase and try out. I don't like the concept really excites me, and I'm sure probably it's probably not gonna be anything amazing. That's fine. I don't need it to be amazing. I just need it to be interesting, and it just really excites me. And I want to see that game. And even if it only comes out in Japanese, I might just go ahead and buy it and just start checking it out because I really want to see it. Hopefully, I don't forget about it. Like 15 days is longer than maybe my personal interest keeps up with things, because I'm very much just like doing one thing and moving on to the next thing. That, and I have so many other games I'm trying to, I'm clogged up on games right now. I mentioned it like, not last week, but the week before. The same games I mentioned that podcast, basically the exact same thing. I haven't moved on any of them. So I'm hoping going, soon I'll be moving forward on some of those games. There's also a Jet Girls trailer that I apparently missed. I think it happened like in early October. Nothing really new there other than just I think the game still looks really clean, and I'm still really hoping that the level design is really going to win me over. But what's kind of interesting is that they have like little mini games in the game as well. So there's like deck scrubbing. So like it's the girl scrubbing the deck back and forth, and then like a girl running on a treadmill and stuff. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I assume that's probably maybe to raise stats or something. I don't know why else you'd have those mini games in there other than just like maybe like a silly side attraction kind of thing. I really like the Splatoon mini games where you like go and like during a load screen you just play this mini game, or like during matchmaking rather. I wish more games did stuff like that, like something to play around with while you're waiting or something like that. Admittedly, I think a lot of people probably just use their phone, or in my case, I sit at my desk when I play games, so I just, use my PC. But it's nice to have like something, especially when I'm playing like over voice chat with somebody. I may not want to do something on my PC at the time. It's nice to have like a little mindless thing to do on your actual like, in the game while you're waiting for everybody to queue up and things like that. So still excited for Jet Girls. So this is actually an old story here, but I had completely missed it, apparently. And I don't know if I'm excited about this or not. The Famicom Tante, I don't know if did I spell that right? Yeah, Famicom Tante Club, I think it's like Famicom Mystery Club or something like that, is getting remade by Mages, who does like, I think the Steins Gates visual novels and some other stuff. But yeah, that's actually really exciting, if only because, I love it when Nintendo gives some love to their lesser known franchises, and the Famicom Detective Club, I think is what it's called in the previously localized name by fans. That kind of stuff is always like super interesting to me, especially something like that where it's like, real life humans and stuff walking around. That's very I don't know if I want to say realistic, but it is realistically styled in terms of like, it's an anime style, but they're realistic types of people, I guess. And this is a game that I was actually very interested in a long time ago because there's a fan translation, I think the second game on Super Nintendo. And I sat down and played a few minutes of this around the time I was getting into visual novels, and unfortunately I just never actually got through it. So seeing the remake is pretty exciting, and I'm really hoping that Nintendo will actually bring it out over here. The visual novel market is so much more different these days that like I would expect that this gets localized, but at the same time, there's still enough cases where like is Nintendo in the business of bringing over a visual novel? I think those are the ones where I start questioning, like when Capcom or Konami put out, like, when Konami puts out Love Plus, or when Capcom puts out, what's that game called? It's like the Mirror Man game where you're like looking into the guy through the mirror and like, touching his hand and stuff. Like that's not really their U.S. market to pursue. So I worry that they just will be like, maybe in the case of Nintendo, they'll be like, oh, it's a visual novel, we really don't want to do this here, kind of thing. But my hope would be that if they don't want to do it, they let somebody else do it, like Pandora's Tower. And I forget who brought Pandora's Tower over in the U.S. Oh my gosh, it was like a smaller developer or smaller publisher. Oh, I can't remember. I'd have to look it up. I'm blanking on their name. Anyways, so yeah, I'm that's cool. I didn't realize that was announced at, like, I think it was a direct in early September. So I was like, oh, I just completely missed this. Apparently, I used to watch the Japanese direct alongside the U.S. direct, but the directs are kind of hard for me to follow these days. Because I'm, at least my feeling is, because I'm Pacific time. Like they usually kind of happen at inconvenient times. It's usually like during my work day or really early in the morning. And I end up having to watch them way later. So yeah. And the final news story here, speaking of Love Plus, I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I was like, hey, we're finally out of Love Plus development hell and into actual Love Plus. And I think funnily enough, at that time I said, into, like, on accident, said we're into Love Plus hell now or something like that. Because I just had misspoke or something. Hey, Love Plus is broken. Love Plus Every is broken, apparently. I saw a handful of news stories today, or not today, throughout the last week, about just how, like, they basically took the game down, and as of, I believe, this recording, it's still down. They found a bunch of bugs at the start that basically made it so, like, every day you would get the daily reward for free, or not every day, like whenever you were logging in, you could just continue to, like, obtain the daily reward. And then also you would, like, do these challenge missions, but you wouldn't get credit for finishing them, or you couldn't go into a different challenge mission and stuff. So, like, stuff was just broken. Like, we're taking it down for 4 hours, and it sounds like they kept delaying it. Now they're just like, we're taking it down until it's fixed, is basically what it sounds like at this point. So, yeah, it's a little sad to see, because at least for me, it feels like Love Plus, that franchise, kind of died with the 3DS releases. And if I recall correctly, the issues with the 3DS releases were almost always just technical issues, and I don't recall if they ever really patched those games up enough, or if they patched them up if people came back to them and stuff. So I'm curious to see if this game can recover. I mean, we are in an industry where so many games recover from poor launches. So I'm really interested to see if Love Plus ever can turn it around. Yeah, I like the look of Love Plus, and it's stylistically, I think it's a fun series. The concept's cool. I feel like it's a concept you don't see a ton of, just like the ongoing relationship kind of thing, rather than having like a static story. So I think that's, I think it's a fun franchise. It's like an interesting experiment. The only other thing I can think of right now is Roommate Ryoko, which was like for the PlayStation 1, but even that's a set period of time. It's like you basically spend, I think it's like 6 months with the roommate and play it in real time or something like that. So yeah, I did look at some of the gameplay, and there's something I noticed about how the camera works. It's like, so it looks like the beginning of the game is probably faithful to the original DS release, at least in terms of, like, the type of content that's happening. I think some of the art is literally just the DS art, but cleaner, or not cleaner, but like the source assets possibly. And one thing that I noticed is, and I'm assuming this is probably intentional, when you're like sitting down beside Nene in your workplace kind of thing, you're kind of very close to her and like slightly above her in a way that just to me feels very unnatural. I don't know if that's an intentional choice or just kind of that's just how it kind of ended up being. It just looks weird to me. But when I look at like stuff like VR chat and how those kind of character interactions look a lot of the time when you're like sitting beside somebody, there is that kind of like, especially if you're a taller character model, like that weird kind of somewhat too close but like above the character to some extent, and it reminds me a little bit of that, and I'm just like, maybe that is more accurate. I don't know. I don't sit beside people very often, so I don't know. It just looks weird to me, and I kind of prefer the in the original DS game. It's a lot more head on. It's like you guys are like matching height level basically, and the interaction feels appropriately spaced, but like, there are also large enough, I think it has something to do with like how the environment is rendered, because the other one's like 3D and the DS one, everything's 2D, so it feels like the space between you is a lot shorter in Love Plus everywhere. In the 2D one, it feels like you're more in a room with space. I don't know. It's a weird thought like I had when I was watching it. It's just like, this looks uncomfortably close to them, and it's like a weird above angle kind of thing. I don't know. I don't hate it. Like, it's fine. It's just like a weird observation I made when looking at it. So, yeah. Whew. Thanks for coming. OneControlReport.com is the website. I finished Gun Valkyrie stream this week, which unfortunately I feel like with Gun Valkyrie, I feel like I was learning the main mechanics of the game way too late. Like, I think it's like literally the last level I found out you could use melee attacks to shoot yourself upward, which seemed very, very important. And when I was watching the demo video at the end of the stream, I was like, oh, they literally show you that in the demo video, but it's not mentioned at the training or anything like that. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of, maybe that game just needed a better onboarding process is maybe what it is. But yeah, I basically just kind of finished that up, and it was interesting. I didn't read any of the files on it. Like, there's like a series of like story files you could read. There wasn't a ton of them. Just took like 5 minutes to read them all. But it basically seemed like story wise, it's basically about like DNA experiments and the scientists going mad, and you have to hunt them down. Wasn't a lot to the story, but it was interesting to see. But yeah, what a weird game. I wish I'd learned how to play it better sooner. I could definitely invest more time into it if I wanted to, but there's not any more content in the game. I looked up to see if there was a true ending, because the ending seems kind of like bad, but it seems like that's just kind of the ending. So yeah, I don't know. But I had fun with it, and so if you're looking at me frustrated during that stream, just know that the game can be good. I think you just need a better understanding of how the game should be played first. So fun game though, fun game. I don't regret playing it. So next week we're gonna have a Dreamcast stream. Gonna basically just recreate what I did 2 weeks ago on my own, or last weekend on my own, whatever it was. Just gonna play a bunch of Dreamcast games using my my VGA box. So if you come by this Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, and I'll have like a list of my games posted. Either like I'll post it in the podcast notes here just for the sake of it, but also I'll have it included on the stream and stuff. And you can basically just look at my list of games and request we play something, and yeah, we'll sit down and just play some Dreamcast games for a couple hours. And then I think after that we'll probably end up playing Martian Gothic. Just feel like the right time for that, but I'm still kind of thinking about it, and I'll review what we've streamed lately and see if I can find something else that feels appropriate to stream at this time. But I think that's probably going to be what's next. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you again. If you listened to the Lost Kingdoms 2 podcast last week, I really appreciate it. Again, thank you to Rowan and Elena for coming on. That was really nice of them. And I had a great time talking to them about a really neat series, a really unique series on the GameCube. So if you haven't listened to it, I'd recommend it, but you know, I can't force you to do it, but I would recommend it. It would make me happy if you listen to it at least. So that's up. I'll go ahead and link it at the end of the YouTube video at the very least. And I'll link it in the podcast notes too. And then I'm gonna have this week a video, a gaming pickups video. So I'm going to go ahead and cover some of the games I picked up recently. So that's going to be up on the website on Wednesday. So hopefully you enjoy that. That was a big chunk of today was working on that. And then a big chunk of today was also working on stuff for when I was in Japan. And then now I'm finishing the day with this podcast. Literally been recording and editing all day, audio, video, and all that good stuff. Also, those two other things I have to render out are hour-long videos. So they're going to take like 4 hours to export, which is gonna make me want to die. I'll have to export them overnight or something like that. So yeah, other than that, I don't really have anything else to say right now. So yeah, I'll let you guys know how things are going in terms of, you know, games and stuff. Hopefully I got time to play something new soon. Once I finish up this Japan project stuff, I think I'll finally be able to move on. So yeah, we'll see. All right, thank you for coming. OneControlPort.com is the website, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.